Hey, brother. Ben, I think we can all agree that The Lion King is one of the greatest films ever made, but one scene in particular has always bothered me. And no, not the weird, possibly incestuous Simba-Nala reunion scene. It's the scene at the end after Simba defeats Scar. He climbs up Pride Rock, does this weird magic roar thing, and all of a sudden, poof, the kingdom just transforms from wasteland back into grassland. What? Why does that happen? I mean, did the trees and the grass really care about who's in charge? Just because there's a regime change, nature decides to start growing again? Like, I get that when Scar is in charge, he forces overhunting on the land so food becomes scarce, but would that really create a wasteland? And yes, I get that the movie wants to demonstrate that Scar being in charge is bad news, he's going too far, and a wasteland is a good way to do that, but it does seem a little over the top. Could that really be the outcome? Well, the simple answer is yes, and there are very real-world examples that demonstrate this exact thing. Allow me to introduce you to the wolves of Yellowstone National Park and a phenomenon known as a trophic cascade. Yellowstone, if you don't know, is located in the upper northwest corner of Wyoming and is home to a huge variety of wildlife, and at the very top of that food chain is the gray wolf. Yeah, take that, bears. Wolves for the win! Well, that is, unless you count man, in which case man is at the top of the food chain. And sadly for the wolves, until 1926, man did count and was allowed to hunt whatever and wherever they wanted inside of Yellowstone National Park. The park even encouraged hunters to find and kill wolves because they were seen as an unwanted predator, and by 1926, mission accomplished. There were no wolves left in Yellowstone. And this localized extinction of wolves lasted for 70 years, but it didn't take nearly that long for the effects to start happening. The immediate impact was that the elk population skyrocketed, and as little as 3 years later, like just 1929, reports were filed that stated the park was in, quote, deplorable conditions. This is because without the wolves, the elk could roam wherever they pleased, and with their rapidly rising numbers, they quickly overgrazed the entire park. Overgrazing is really bad for the ecosystem because it causes all of the plants to die off, which is the habitat for a bunch of these smaller animals, which then in turn leads to a bunch of these slightly larger predators to start leaving and dying off, like foxes or badgers or weasels. So weirdly, removing this one thing that kills other animals actually causes more animals to die off. The wolves are giving more life than they are taking. And you'd think with such an obvious and immediate impact, people would be calling to reintroduce wolves into the park right away, right? Well, some people did, especially after the wolf was added to the endangered species list in 1967, although that was still like 40 years later. But it was an uphill battle because remember, initially the park wanted the wolves gone. They were seen as an unwanted and undesirable predator. It'd be like if all of a sudden your beach was overrun with seals and nobody wanted to come visit anymore, and then somebody in tourism was like, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we add a few sharks into the mix? That'll get people back into the water, right? So yeah, it's a tough argument, especially when, as I said earlier, we humans are at the top of the food chain. We can kill these elks and fix the problem, right? Well, they tried that too, and although they were good at controlling the population, it didn't quite have the restorative effects they expected. And ironically, people eventually began to complain that there were too few elks, so they put an end to that, and then the population really got out of control. It wasn't until 1973 when the Endangered Species Act was passed and obligated U.S. wildlife and fish to create restoration plans for any animal on the endangered species list, including the gray wolf. And boom, just like that, 22 years later, a pack of 14 wolves was released into Yellowstone in 1995. And once again, the effect was almost immediate because, well, yeah, they killed some of the elk, but the real power and change came from how they controlled the elk. This is why humans just killing the elk didn't quite have the restorative properties they expected. With wolves in play, the elk were no longer able to roam free. They had to start avoiding the areas where they were most likely to be killed, like open spaces next to rivers and valleys on the fringes of forests. And being constantly stressed like that and being forced out of all the best places to live will also reduce the overall birth rate. So bad news if you're an elk, but great news if you're pretty much like anything else, because now without all of the overgrazing, all of the plants and flora were able to return. And with the return of the plants and trees comes the animals back that inhabit those areas and the animals that hunt those animals. But here's where it gets especially cool, because the wolves affect the rivers themselves. What? Yeah, not just the wildlife, but the landscape itself. One of the key trees that was able to return was the willow, which is a tree needed for beavers to survive. And survive they did. Their population increased by over 9 times inside the park, which is important because they were then able to create dams on the river. This creates marshes and ponds and stabilizes the riverbanks and creates great homes for like fish and waterfowl and ducks and moose and otters, just by restoring order and returning wolves to the park. I mean, how freaking awesome are wolves? But anyway, getting back to The Lion King, the point is, yes, a single change, like forcing the lions to hunt not just for themselves, but also all of the hyenas, can cause a massive trophic cascade, a big ripple effect that affects not just the wildlife, but also the nature and landscape itself. Although, honestly, you'd think if they overhunted all of the grass eaters, there'd be a weird abundance of grass, not like a total wasteland area. But hey, who knows? These things are very hard to predict, and it very well could be wasteland, and anyway, that really serves the plot better, so either way. Good job, Lion King. I had so much fun learning about this. If you want to get more detailed into how the wolves changed Yellowstone, I will leave links to a bunch of articles and videos down in the description. I highly recommend you check them out. They are so interesting. And my question for you and everyone else is, who is your favorite character from The Lion King? Or have you been to Yellowstone? Do you have an awesome story? I so badly want to go to Yellowstone now. It is like officially on my bucket list. Tell me your story in the towel section below. But Ben, that's all I've got for you today, man. I'll see you in another life, brother.
These socks are amazing!
Guys, thanks for watching. As always, please like this video if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Lion King videos. If you want to see a video about why Nala should be a Disney princess, you can click here for my top 5 snubbed Disney princesses. And if you want to get ready for Finding Dory, which is coming out this week, you can check out my video right here for the top 10 Easter eggs to look for in Finding Dory. And now I'm just gonna sit here so you have some time to click.